Assalamu alaikum, hello and welcome to the Legal Forum here only on the Islam channel with me, Lee Clark. In this series, we've partnered up with Khan Solicitors and we will be looking into a range of topics such as divorce, immigration, wills and probate, landlord and tenant disputes and domestic violence. I'm pleased to welcome Omar Khan, one of the partners and solicitors of the firm, who will discuss today's topics: spouse, visa applications from outside the UK and its requirements. We look at the process when applying and the do's and the don'ts as well. Omar, welcome to the show. How are you? Lovely to see you again. Now, we've moved on over the series to where we are today, and of course, applications for spouse visas. Tell us how hard that is and the complications that some people may have to go through and the requirements that are needed to bring your spouse here to the UK.
So we were just talking about just earlier as well that now is the trend because the people are going out and they are meeting people. They want to marry someone from outside the UK, and the trend is going on now. And obviously now the Home Office and the government has made all these regulations and laws, immigration laws, in order to meet those requirements and bring your spouses here. There are several requirements which you have to meet in order to bring your spouse, or your fiance, or your partner as well. So those are the requirements which are mandatory, and these are covered by the immigration rules, Appendix FM of the immigration rules. I will obviously go through those requirements with you so that people, our listeners or our viewers, they don't, if they have to make one application, then obviously they don't make any usual mistakes which can lead to a refusal, and the refusal can be very devastating because of the involvement of the fee.
Okay.
It's a very large sum of fees, which the application fee which you spend on. And secondly, if you appeal that decision, it could take up to a year to get resolved.
So we talked about spouse. I mean, so what we're about to talk about. So if you are married or if you have a partner that's your spouse, but we could be engaged also.
Yes.
You could have a partnership
That's
and
right.
civil partnerships. So all of that comes under the category that we're going to be talking about this week.
Of course, yes. Requirements are the same.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if you have a spouse, then obviously you have to show that you are married or in a jurisdiction, and that marriage is recognized by the country you married in, and you have fulfilled all the requirements, and then obviously that marriage will be acceptable by the UK government. And if it's a partnership, then you have to show that you have been in a genuine relationship at least for the past 2 years.
So
for
the
example,
period
utility bills.
Okay, yeah.
For example, the tenancy agreements, whatever the documentary evidence you can show, the doctor's records, that with whatever, and the passports actually, that if you have been living outside the UK with your spouse, the partner, then obviously you need to show that you were there. Actually, you were present in that country. If you want to bring your partner here and you were living outside the UK.
Is there a time frame for that, for being a partner?
Yeah, it's at least they say that at least 2 years, previous
Okay.
2 years you have
Right.
to show the relationship in order to establish that you are in a genuine relationship. It's not only limited to this. Obviously, if you are bringing your spouse, you have to show that it is a genuine relationship, rather than just showing a marriage certificate that yes, we are married. Whether you are married or not, the question is whether you are in a genuine relationship. So showing the genuine relationship is important.
I'm going to try and put a spanner in the works because I know there's a lot of questions that kind of people might throw up that aren't the average question. For instance, if the spouse or one of the partners has come to the UK and been here, maybe say living and working for 2 or 3 years, but then might not show up on the documentation of the other partner in that relative country, if you've become off the documentation for a period of a year or two because you're working, say, in the UK, Does that affect the position?
So these are the things which, as I said, if you are showing that you are in a genuine relationship.
Okay.
So, for example, distant relations, obviously, they are not, good ones. In order to establish that there's a good relationship, because if you are living here and then the partner is living in Pakistan or India or any other country, then distant relationship, obviously they create the doubts that really whether this is a genuine relationship or not. But some spouses, say for example, some people, they just go and live there or working, say for example UAE or India or Pakistan or any of the African country or USA, whichever country, if they have been there, they're working, and they meet someone and they don't want to marry, but they are in a relationship. So if they start living together in a relationship, then obviously it will be very easy to show that they are in a genuine relationship.
So examples of people coming, say, from Pakistan or India or Sri Lanka or places like that, are certain countries harder to obtain spouse visas into the UK, or is it kind of an equal par for all countries?
It is. Well, every application is looked at it on its merits, really. As long as you fulfill the requirements of the application. So, for example, relationship requirement is a very important part of that application, to establish that. And secondly, which is very important nowadays, that your income, so the spouse's income is very important. That now the Home Office actually has a fixed an income threshold.
Yes.
Whereby if you are calling one spouse, then obviously you need to have £18,600 minimum rate.
£18,600
per annum.
Per annum.
Your gross income, which shows that you can afford a spouse in the UK. However, there are only certain people who don't have to, which is that if you are a disabled person, if you're disabled, obviously you can't work. You will be on obviously PIP, which they call it personal independent payments, or disability living allowance. Obviously you are receiving from the government, which showing that you are a registered disabled, and therefore your spouse is exempt to meet that requirement. And if you are a carer of a disabled person, are registered obviously and you are receiving a care allowance as well on while you're caring for the disabled person. So therefore your spouses will not have to meet those requirements still. It is a very common mistake people make, that we don't have to meet any requirements, so therefore we will be exempt from it. But still you have to show that how you will maintain yourself in the UK. So the government website has the list of those institutions and the required level of English test. So normally nowadays the requirement is a level CEFR level A1. Which is
That sounds complicated.
Yes, which is a very it sounds complicated, but it's a very basic English test, which requires listening and speaking, which is not really a very high level English language test, in order to just show that you can speak basic and listen to basic words.
What about written? Do you have to pass any written tests? I mean, you talked about the vocabulary.
There's no written. There's no. It's just listening and speaking. And that's all, because they are not from English-speaking countries. But if they are from English-speaking countries, majority English-speaking countries, then you don't have to meet that requirement. Say, for example, USA, or colonies in Africa, their first language is English, or whether this broken English, or whatever they call it. So obviously they don't have to. For example, Jamaica, the citizens of Jamaica, their first language is English, so they don't have to pass that. So they are exempt as well. But other countries, they have to, and there are the list of countries who have to pass the exam before they apply.
So we've proved that we're a married couple or a spouse or a partnership or, engaged in a way by showing our bills and our tenancy agreements that we may share together. We've shown that our financial boundaries are met. That's and the fact is that we earn £18,600 per annum, minimum per annum.
That's right. And another thing I would just add,
yes,
it is the minimum for one if you are calling a spouse.
Yeah.
But if your spouse is coming with the child as well.
Mm-hmm. And as far as the law from your side of it, at Khan Solicitors, does it change and evolve regularly? I mean, it must be quite a job from your side to keep on top of all the changes that happen.
Definitely, it is very important that obviously we keep up with the changes, and Home Office changes quite a lot. Especially the application fees and the requirements and the application forms and the way it should be done. So we have to keep ourselves up to date in order to advise
and give the best advice,
exactly,
as you do.
Right.
I would say, out of the requirements that we've talked about so far in this first half of the show, with language, financial, proving that you are in a relationship or certainly had been living together, which is the hardest one that people find harder to furnish and provide proof of? Is it, in your experience, which is the hardest one?
Of course, if you requirement, if you're the threshold of the income, I have seen recently people are very, it is very hard for them to meet the £18,600 threshold, and especially if you have got children as well. Mm-hmm. It is very difficult because a normal income is not such that unless you are employed by a big or you're professional or you are employed by a big organization where you earn to over £20,000. But I think average income is not such that £18,600 minimum. So that is the most common. I hear that this is too much for me and I have to now take another job, say for example, and then calculate my annual income.
The other thing I was thinking of as you were giving me a good insight there is the fact is, say for instance one spouse is living here but maybe have their grandparents living here in the UK, can any monies or funds or property that they have go towards helping you meet that threshold of 18,600, or is it all down to your income from your job?
There is a way,
yes,
where you can meet the requirement if you have a saving.
Okay, all right.
So the saving, but it's not just a couple of £1,000. Obviously, the saving is a considerable amount of money, at least 62,500 in your account or in your savings. But you need to show that where you got the money from, and it has to be in your account consecutively for 6 months before you make an application.
Let's start right at the very beginning. The process to get your visa applications arranged, how does that take place?
Well, now the process is how it starts. The process starts with an application, online application. It's visaforuk.gov.uk. There is the government website. Mm-hmm. You go on there and then you create an application, and then you start the procedure. You follow all the direct instructions and the right application, which application you are going to make. There are several applications, not just spouses, the other applications as well. And once that is complete, so at the end when you submit the application, it tells you you need to pay the application fees, how much it will be.
Which is what initially, normally?
Normally, the problem is that when you are making an application, it is calculated in the country's currency where you're making the application from. So it can vary, but normally it is around £1,400, which is in pounds. So if it is converted into another currency, then
then that will vary, obviously.
Vary,
Yeah.
obviously.
Is the help of somebody like yourself at Khan Solicitors recommended to get through the process properly, quickly, and efficiently, or is anybody who's proficient and able to use the internet quite easily able to do it? Or would you recommend, I'm not trying to say that they have to use a solicitor, but do you recommend that they should have at least some consultation?
Because, definitely they have to have legal advice, because
Okay.
it's not simple as straightforward. Like, people come to me who had the spouse visa, applied for the spouse visa 20, 30 years ago for their spouses, and now their children are making an application, and they would say, and come and say, well, it used to be really, really easy. We just had 2-page form, and would take a month or so, and then they would be here. However, now it is so complicated because of the requirements, different different the nitty-gritties of those. So I will always say that you are making an application, you are spending so much money on it.
Get it
is
right.
Very,
Yeah.
very important that you get it right, because especially when I say you get it right, is the income requirement. It is not always simple and straightforward. There are ways to calculate your income. So if you make a mistake and they are not there to correct it, they will just look at judge the application, whatever you have provided.
Well, that leads me into my question. That I always think of these questions when you talk to me, and I think of all these wonderful questions that I know that you can help our viewers with. For instance, what's the biggest mistake that you see people making on the initial application? You think, only if you'd have sought my advice or come to talk to us.
Yes, it is. Normally what happens is that the lack of documentation.
Okay.
For each and every requirement, there is a specific documentation. You have to provide documentary evidence, which has been set up in the rules as well, that these are the specific documents we require, whether, say for example, whether you are a self-employed person, whether you are an employed person. So if you are in employment, you need to show these documents. There is a list of documents, and if you are self-employed, or if you are a company director and at the employed, so it's quite complicated. So
can you help the spouse or partner of somebody who's already here in the UK? Can you help them in their home country, or would you partner them up, or say to go and find their own advice in their town, city, or country, wherever they are?
Normally, what happens is that the sponsor approaches us.
Okay.
Obviously, they are making an application for the UK visa. So obviously, the right person would be
somebody who's already here.
Who is also already here and who understands the immigration rules.
If you've applied online, you've paid the fee to apply for the application in the first instance, and you're refused, do you get your fee back, and time frames? What's the time frame of maybe making another application further down the line?
That's a very good question. I wish that people in Home Office could return their money back.
I suppose they have to do an amount of work to check out
that's
the application,
right,
don't they?
You have paid for your application in order for them to process it. So to process it, they will charge you a fee. But if because of your lack of evidence, or your application is not complete, and it is then considered and is refused, it's not their fault, it's your fault.
Of course.
And therefore, the fee will not be refunded. However, the applicant will be given an opportunity to appeal that decision.
You read my mind, because that's what I was going to ask.
That's
Can you appeal a rejection?
That's right. Well, still, the other appeals have been reduced on the matters, because this is under the human rights,
Of course.
regulation. So they have still grant you the right of appeal. So the appeal has to be lodged in the UK at the court, at the tribunal, immigration tribunal. It takes, the process is very long. I've seen application or the appeals being listed for the hearing up and taking up to 1 year.
So up to a year.
That's right.
Have you got many, some recent examples of, of applications being rejected and people, having to go through this long process again? I mean, I can imagine very traumatic.
Anything can trigger a refusal. As long as you follow the procedures and follow the requirements, there will be no problem.
Okay.
And therefore, you need to have a proper advice. For example, if you have got income which you have to mix and match.
Of course.
Say, for example, you are non-salaried employment. In non-salaried employment, basically you earn or your income is based on hourly rate.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have, say, £20,000 per annum. No, it's not fixed.
Depends on how many hours you work.
Yeah. So there is a formula given by the Home Office to calculate your income and how many weeks you have to add into that income. To calculate that income for 6 months or for 1 year. For self-employment is different as well. So every process the calculation is different. Mm-hmm. So say, for example, if you make a small mistake, in calculations, in calculating your income, obviously it becomes 18,000, not say 18,600.
Yes.
That's it. You will have the refusal.
Just a very quick summary of what people will need to process their visa application and the process, and if we can do that in all the next minute, I think you're even more amazing than you actually already are.
I will go through very quickly.
Yeah.
The application has to be made online.
Mm-hmm.
You need to provide all the information in the application form, make the payment, fees, and then get all the documentary evidence which is which is under the rules. Mm-hmm. Take legal advice, very, very important. Don't do it on your, read it on the internet and just do it on your...
Don't risk making a mistake.
No, don't risk making it. It is very important that, you spend some money on a proper legal advice and then make the application. And once they are here, then they must follow, the spouses are here, then obviously they must follow the conditions of their visas, because they will be having problems when it comes to extending their visa. This is quite a lot to talk about in a very certain time. But yes, it is. In summary, you have to take legal advice.
Well, coming to someone like yourself at Khan Solicitors would be the best advice I can give our viewers. Omar, as always, thank you very much indeed, sir, and I'll see you next time. So there you have it, some important and helpful information on spouse visa applications. We hope the scenarios discussed on today's show can give you a better understanding on today's topic. And I'd like to thank our guest Omar Khan from Khan Solicitors for his input on today's show. Please also bear in mind the views and opinions expressed in Legal Forum should be considered for informational purposes only and not case-specific legal advice. All topics are discussed in a generic nature, and it's important you consult either with a CAB, law centre or solicitor before relying on it. If you'd like to find out more about the Legal Forum or the topic discussed today, then please email us at legalforum@islamchannel.tv. For now, it's a goodbye for me. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Assalamu alaikum.